Hi there, I'm Jolene. My sister rewrote our mother's final wishes, erased my name from her will, and told the world I was just some greedy outsider. But when Mom's real voice echoed through the courtroom, Brielle froze. What kind of sister does that, after everything? Before we dive in, tell me, have you ever been betrayed by your own blood? What time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop a comment. I'd love to know. Charleston's early morning rain had a way of crawling into your bones. I stepped out of the rental car and adjusted my coat, watching the condensation bead up and run down the sleek black surface like little escapes. My heels clicked against the stone steps of the church, every sound louder than it should have been. Eyes turned, then away. No one waved. Aunt Linda offered a tight-lipped smile, her arms clutching her purse like it might leap from her grasp if she got too close to me. I inhaled through my nose, slow and steady. This wasn't about them. I was here for my mother. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of lilies and something colder, like dust and disapproval. I reached for the memorial booklet left on each pew and froze. My name wasn't there, not once. Under family, Brielle's name was listed twice, beloved daughter and sole caregiver. No mention of me, no photos either, not even the childhood ones I knew existed. Our shared birthdays, the Thanksgiving where I helped Mom carve the turkey while Brielle complained about the lighting, gone. I turned each page slowly, not because I didn't know what I'd find, but because I was hoping I'd missed something. But the more I looked, the more invisible I became. The slideshow began as the choir's hum faded. I watched from the corner of the room as image after image rolled across the screen. All of them, Brielle and Mom. Brielle holding Mom's hand at the hospital. Brielle at graduations, holidays, parties. I wasn't in a single frame. A voice behind me whispered, "Wasn't Jolene the one who moved away and never called?" I clenched my jaw until I felt a pulse in my temple. I didn't turn around. Then came the real show. A young woman in heels and a slick ponytail, Brielle's assistant, I remembered, floated through the aisles, phone out, camera live. "Say hi to the live stream audience," she chirped. Brielle stood at the pulpit, tears welling up perfectly beneath professionally mascaraed lashes. "She was my world," she said, voice cracking. "Mom always said, 'You're my anchor.'" She dabbed the corner of her eye, then smiled bravely through the tremble. The assistant angled her phone just right. The camera panned across the room and deliberately skipped over me. Whispers grew. She abandoned her mother. I heard she didn't even come to the hospital. Why would Mom cut her out if she wasn't guilty? Later that night, when I finally escaped the weight of fake condolences and well-placed glares, I opened my phone. The live stream had already hit 43,000 views. The comments were full of hearts and condolences for Brielle. One read, "Some daughters don't deserve to be called daughters." Another, "That Jolene chick looks cold. No wonder she was cut out." I put the phone down. In the restroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. My lipstick had faded, and the corners of my eyes stung. I locked the stall door, sat down, and pulled my knees close. For a few seconds, I let the silence press in, until Mom's voice came back, not from memory, but from the past. "Don't let them take everything." She had whispered it in the hospital, weeks before she passed. Her hand was brittle in mine. I thought she was delirious, but now... A buzz snapped me back, a new voicemail from an unknown number. I hit play. "If you're hearing this, it means she went too far." Mom's voice, clear, certain, like she knew what Brielle would do. My hand trembled. I played it again and again. Everything inside me shifted. I sat in my car long after the church doors closed behind the last guest. The sky was an overcast gray, the kind that presses against your windshield like a warning. The funeral was over, but nothing inside me felt finished. I pressed play on the voicemail again. "If this reaches you, don't trust what they show." Mom's voice, low and worn, like it had been recorded in secret. "Brielle's not what she seems." She sounded tired, cautious, afraid. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. I wanted to believe it was real. I needed it to be. But what if it wasn't? 2 days later, I returned to the old house, the one with chipped shutters and a porch swing that still creaked when the wind pushed it just right. Brielle said she'd handle the big stuff, but I told her I needed to pick up some personal items. She didn't argue, just shrugged like I was another errand to ignore. Inside, it smelled like cedar and ghosted perfume. I wandered the hall I once roller skated down in socks, past the cracked frame with our last family photo, me, cropped by accident. Or maybe not. In the back of Mom's closet was the old chest. It had been locked for years, but I remembered the trick: jiggle the latch twice and lift hard. Inside, folded scarves still carried the scent of her hairspray. Beneath them, a flash drive wrapped in wax paper and a thick envelope. My name, in her handwriting. For Jolene, only if they lie. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was short but devastating. Mom wrote about feeling cornered, pressured. Brielle won't listen, she wrote. She tells me I'm confused, old. But I remember what I built. I know what I want. She said she feared signing the new papers, that she tried to delay it, that Brielle had threatened to move her to a facility if she didn't cooperate. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Her voice filled the silence, stronger than the voicemail, steadier. If something happens and this reaches Jolene, then I failed to stop her. I didn't want the estate to change. I said no, and they made me feel like I didn't matter anymore. I covered my mouth. The tears came hard and fast. That night I emailed the audio to Whitlow. He was the only person outside the family who knew both of us, and still called me kiddo. By morning, the storm arrived. A letter from Brielle's attorney was slipped under my door. Notice of potential defamation, fabrication using artificial intelligence. It warned me not to share the file without verification or risk legal action. Later, on Facebook, Brielle posted a soft-lit photo of Mom holding her hand. The caption read, "Grief makes people see what they want. Sad when truth isn't enough." The comments gushed over her strength. One person wrote, "That sister of yours always seemed unstable." My chest burned. I couldn't breathe. I opened the file again, zoomed in on the waveform. Every breath Mom took, every pause, every syllable, it was her. No synthetic voice could know how she always said my name like it mattered. I remembered something she used to say whenever Brielle made me feel like less. "They'll always call you dramatic. That's how they keep you small. Not this time." I opened a new tab, found a forensic lab 4 hours away, and booked the earliest appointment they had. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the ending. The office hadn't changed. Same dark wood paneling, same fake fern in the corner, same photo of the senior partners grinning like Southern gentlemen of old. I stood in the doorway, soaked in air conditioning and history. The receptionist looked up. New face, young, nervous. "I'm here to see the will my sister submitted." She hesitated, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm the daughter. That's my right," I said, voice flat, "unless someone erased me from that too." She blinked, then nodded. One moment. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in the same chair where I used to color with crayons while Mom signed papers. The file was handed to me, thin, unassuming. I opened it. The will read like a business memo. Cold, mechanical. "To my beloved daughter Brielle, I leave the full estate including..." It didn't even mention me, not once. I flipped to the signature page. It looked right, her loops, her pressure, but something about it was off. Too perfect. I held it up to the light. There, barely visible, printer artifacts. The ink bled too cleanly, no pressure marks. The spacing between letters wasn't human. My stomach dropped. Whitlow had given me a name, a friend who'd worked with federal document authentication. I sent them photos. The reply came within an hour. Highly probable use of signature replication tech, not handwritten. I sat perfectly still, not shaking, not blinking, just burning. "She planned this," I whispered, "down to the damn font." I flipped back to the witness signature. Angela Barnes. I knew that name. She used to be Brielle's assistant, the one who always fetched her triple-shot lattes and stayed late even when Brielle didn't. Fired, quietly, months before Mom passed. I searched my inbox and pulled up an old holiday party invite. Angela had RSVP'd yes, CC'd on Brielle's email. Still the same phone number. I called. No answer. I called again. She picked up. Hello? Angela, it's Jolene. I need to talk. About Mom's will. A long pause, then a breath. I can't. I know Brielle used you, but you were there. You saw what she did. You helped her fake this. Click. The silence in my ear roared louder than her words. I sat there, fingers curled into the edge of the table. If Angela was scared, it meant she knew. And fear only grows when there's truth buried deep. 6 years ago, Mom was chopping celery too close to the edge of the cutting board. I think it's time I revisit my will, she said. Brielle had laughed. Mom, you're not dying tomorrow. But I remembered the way Mom's hands paused, how she looked down and changed the subject. Something inside her had already started retreating. The doubt was there even then, and Brielle knew it. I stared at the file again, the fake signature, the fake witness, the fake love in that letter. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't just greed, I whispered. It was war. I picked up the phone and dialed Whitlow. We need to subpoena Angela. The knock came just as I was unlocking my front door. I turned to see Mr. Edmonds, my across-the-street neighbor, always polite, always slightly nosy, holding out a folded newspaper like it was a dead bird. You might want to see this, he said. It's not great. I took it from him, thanked him mechanically, and stepped inside before I opened it. The headline slammed into me like a fist. Disgraced daughter returns to claim what was never hers. My knees nearly gave out. I dropped my bag and sat on the floor, the paper shaking in my hands. The article was a smear job in every sense. Twisted half-truths, invented timelines, even a quote supposedly from me. My mother was confused near the end. She'd have wanted me to have everything. I never said that. I hadn't spoken to any reporter. There was no contact, no fact check, but there it was in print, under my name. I pulled out my phone and scrolled. The comments section made the print headline feel like a lullaby. Some people will stop at nothing when there's money on the line. Where was she when her mom needed her? Typical entitled brat. My throat tightened. My lungs felt like they forgot how to expand. I read until I couldn't see the screen anymore. The next morning, I walked straight into the office of the Charleston Chronicle. The front desk clerk tried to intercept me, but I didn't stop until I stood outside the editor's office, door half shut. Jolene, he greeted, stiff. I assume this is about the piece. You think? I held up the paper like it was Exhibit A in a trial. Who authorized this? Who interviewed me? Because I sure as hell didn't speak to anyone. He glanced down, shuffled papers that didn't matter. Everything in that piece is legally protected commentary. Sources? Anonymous, I snapped, and conveniently aligned with my sister's version of events. He didn't deny it. That silence told me more than any defensive excuse would have. I left without slamming the door, but the rage inside me was loud. On the sidewalk, the humid air clung to my skin like judgment. This wasn't just sloppy journalism, this was a hit job, and I knew exactly who signed the check. Back home, I dug into the article's byline. Lyle Camden. I knew the name. He used to write human interest fluff for a community paper. I called a contact who still freelanced there. Lyle? She said. He's been compromised for years. Brielle got his kid's DUI buried a while back. She owns him. It was so neat it made my skin crawl. I opened my laptop, screenshot the metadata of the article's anonymous source submission. The timestamp aligned with Brielle's office hours, the IP traced back to her firm. She didn't just orchestrate the story. She handed them the script and pulled the strings. She used a family debt to buy my public execution, I muttered. That evening, I had dinner at Mariah's. We hadn't seen each other in months. I brought wine, tried to smile, pretended my stomach wasn't a clenched fist. Halfway through the meal, over rosemary chicken, she put down her fork. "Jolene, did you really disappear all those years?" Her voice was soft, not accusatory, but not innocent either. I didn't answer. I stared at my untouched plate. The sound of the clock ticking behind her was louder than anything I could have said. When I got home, I deleted the article from my phone, then stared at the black screen, watching my reflection float just above the glass. My face looked different, harder around the mouth, tired in the eyes. "They're watching," I whispered to the dark, and I just started watching back. The boardroom at the Charleston Public Library smelled faintly of lemon oil and nerves. I had walked these halls for 12 years, but today the walls felt narrower, the fluorescent lights colder. Harold Renshaw sat at the head of the table, fingers laced tight enough to whiten his knuckles. He didn't meet my eyes. "Jolene, we're receiving some pressure." Pressure. The word hung in the air like mildew. "A donor?" I asked, voice flat. He nodded once. "A significant one. There's concern. About optics." My stomach flipped. "My performance reviews are spotless." "It's not about that." He fumbled with a sheet of paper he didn't need to read. "It's perception. Your name is polarizing right now." I knew exactly where the polarization came from. Her name started with a B and ended in smug lies whispered into influential ears. "We're not firing you," Harold added quickly, "but we think it might be best if you stepped back voluntarily." I looked around the table. People I'd trained, shared coffee with, helped through divorces, parents' deaths, their first grants. Not one of them could look at me. I felt the knife twist deeper. "I have 1 week to think about it," I said, even though the decision was already made for them. At my desk, people passed without speaking. Others offered tight, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I caught snatches of conversations in the break room, low tones, sudden stops when I walked in. "She never even showed up for the hospice visits." What did she do to her sister? By Friday, HR called me in. The manager was a woman I'd never met. She smiled like a laminated pamphlet and slid a document across the desk. "NDA?" I asked, already knowing. "If you agree not to speak to the media or publicly comment on matters related to the estate, we'll reassign you to a neutral advisory position. No press, no disruption." I stared at the text, legalese meant to tie my tongue. "This comes from your board?" "Let's say it's encouraged." I closed the folder gently. "Tell your donor I wasn't raised to whisper around injustice." She blinked. "I'm sorry." I stood. I speak in full sentences. When I left the office, no one watched me go. I paused at my desk, running my hand across the nameplate I once felt proud of. Jolene A. Walker, Community Engagement Lead. A title that once felt like a calling. Now it tasted like ash. I logged out of my workstation. My inbox was already deactivated. At the door, I pressed my ID card to the scanner. The light blinked green. The lock clicked. I didn't walk through. I turned the card over, stared at my photo, at the little barcode meant to track my presence. Then I set it on the desk, walked out the front doors, and let my heels echo off the marble like a war drum no one else had the courage to beat. Dust hung in the air like breath held too long. The old study smelled of cedar and fading ink. I hadn't stepped into this room since Mom's passing. I hadn't had the strength, but something pulled me back, an ache, maybe, or instinct. The light flickered as I opened the cabinet under the bookshelf. Most of the folders were intact, but tucked inside a rotting copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Something soft crinkled under my fingers. A letter, or what was left of one. The bottom edges had been gnawed by termites, the ink in places a ghost of itself. But I recognized the handwriting. Mom's loops were unmistakable, delicate yet firm. I knelt on the floor, my fingers trembling, breath caught in my throat. "Jolene," it began, shaky but clear. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you more loudly. If you're reading this, someone may have changed what I never would. Trust your instincts. They always hated your fire. A knot in my chest unraveled and reknotted itself in an entirely different place. I scanned what remained with an app on my phone, then slid it into a waterproof sleeve. Every inch of that paper now felt like sacred ground. I rose and turned toward Mom's desk. The drawer creaked when I opened it. Inside, nothing seemed out of place. But something itched at me. I went to the bookshelf where the router and old security DVR used to be. I traced the cord backward. Still connected. I exhaled. Could it be? I tapped into the hard drive. The thumbnails loaded slowly, each one time-stamped. Most were nothing. Me, the hospice nurse, the delivery guy. But then, 2 days after the funeral, I saw her. Brielle. She walked in like she owned the oxygen in the room. She opened drawers, lifted folders, and for a moment stared right at the camera. No fear, no hesitation. She didn't even bother disabling it. I copied the clip to a flash drive. My hand, this time, didn't shake. The proof pulsed warm in my palm. 16 years ago, I once asked Mom why she always locked the desk. She smiled without looking up from her writing. That drawer is mine until I'm gone. After that, it belongs to whoever still loves the truth. Now I understood. As I zipped the flash drive beside the letter into a cloth pouch, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You don't know what you're doing. Stop before someone else gets hurt. My jaw tightened. The silence in the room stretched like smoke. I tapped the screen to reread the message, then whispered to no one. Too late. I stared down at the pouch in my hand. This wasn't just evidence. It was protection, armor. The envelope was thick, embossed with the Charleston County seal, and already felt accusatory before I tore it open. The summons inside made my breath hitch. The court demanded submission of all original documents related to the estate within 24 hours. Any failure, even procedural, would solidify Brielle's forged will as legally binding. I reread the paragraph twice, but the meaning only grew colder. I had exactly 1 day to prove the truth. Before the system shut its doors on me, I dumped the contents of the evidence box onto my bed. The partially eaten letter, the flash drive holding camera footage, Mom's voice memo saved in 2 formats. It all felt too fragile, too human, against the weight of institutional machinery. I called the forensic expert Whitlow had recommended. No answer. I left a message, then another. Finally, someone picked up, his assistant. He's taken unexpected leave, she said flatly. Next, I booked a bonded courier for the evidence delivery. Within 2 hours, he called back, muttering he couldn't find my address. I stood on my porch staring into an empty street, jaw locked. Delay wasn't an accident. It was a design. At 3:12 p.m., the next blow landed. My lawyer, Harris Klein, showed up to our meeting already sweating through his collar. Jolene, he started too softly, I can't represent you anymore. What? The word left me like glass cracking. There's a family conflict. I received a call. Look, I can't get into details. I'm your client, I said, rising. What conflict outweighs that? I was told, kindly, to step back. You understand. This isn't about you. It's political now. He left the folder untouched on the table. No offer to help find someone else. No advice. Just the click of the door as it shut behind him, and the quiet sting of being dropped mid-battle. I sat in silence for a long time, the kind that didn't feel peaceful. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat, numb, until numbness turned to clarity. That night, I cleared the clutter from my dining table. I placed each piece of evidence down with precision. The crumbling letter in a plastic sleeve, the flash drive in a zip case, the printed transcript of Mom's voice. I lit a single candle. Not for prayer, for memory. Mom's voice looped through the recording as I worked. Don't let them take everything. The clock read 11:17 p.m. when I packed the folder into my leather satchel and snapped it shut. I whispered to the quiet, You raised me for this. At dawn, I dressed in the same black blouse I'd worn to her funeral. It felt right now, not as mourning, but as armor. I walked to the courthouse alone. No entourage, no legal counsel, just me, the folder pressed to my chest and footsteps that refused to slow. Morning light sliced through the high windows like judgment itself. The courthouse buzzed with whispered curiosity as I stepped inside, folder in hand. Brielle was already seated at the front, perfectly composed, draped in navy silk like a widow at the Met Gala. Her legal team whispered behind crisp folders, but she looked only at me. That same smirk, half pity, half promise of war. I didn't flinch. The judge entered. Everyone rose. I could hear my own pulse, tight and hard beneath my collar. "We'll begin with the video evidence submitted by Miss Walker," the judge said. The lights dimmed, and there she was, my mother. Her image flickered onto the screen, not frail or confused, but clear, deliberate. "If you're seeing this," she began, "I am no longer here." She paused, gaze firm. "My daughter Jolene has always been my first choice for the estate. She cared when no one else did. Brielle tried to move me into a home against my will. I said no. She pushed." There was a collective gasp. The weight of her words smashed the courtroom's tension like a dropped chandelier. I heard someone sob softly behind me. Aunt Linda, maybe. Brielle's face drained, her eyes blinking fast. Her fingers twitched on the table but didn't reach for anything. The judge leaned in, brows raised. When the screen went dark, it was as if the air had been vacuumed from the room. Even my knees wobbled a bit, but I held firm. "Your Honor," Brielle stood suddenly, voice sharper than glass. "We have our own video to submit, one that shows a different truth." Her team queued up another clip. Mom again, but different. She looked tired, confused, blinking too often. She called us by each other's names, paused mid-sentence. "My sweet Brielle, no, Jolene, you know what to do." I froze. Gasps again, but different this time. Tainted, uncertain. Someone whispered, "Could both be real?" Another murmured, "Was she sick?" My breath caught as the judge raised a hand. "We'll submit both videos for forensic review," he said, voice even. "Until then, no decisions will be rendered." Brielle's composure shattered. "She manipulated that footage!" she shouted, pointing at me. "That wasn't even—" "Enough!" the judge snapped, gavel landing once. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He turned toward me. "Miss Walker, your submission is noted. A temporary freeze will be placed on the estate until authentication is complete." Brielle pushed back her chair hard. It scraped like a scream across tile. She stormed out, heels stabbing the floor, curses under breath. No one followed her. I remained seated. My chest rose and fell slowly. I didn't look back at the audience. I didn't need to see their eyes shift. I had felt the tremor pass through them already. As the judge adjourned, I stood quietly. My folder tucked under one arm. I paused before leaving and glanced once at the bench where Brielle had sat. Now empty. Outside, reporters began shouting questions, cameras flickering to life. I kept walking, toward whatever came next. The courthouse steps felt colder than I remembered, though the sun was finally out. I sat quietly, the hard stone pressing into my back as I scrolled through the headlines. Daughter's courage exposes truth. Estate bombshell video stuns courtroom. Brielle Walker disappears from public view. I blinked slowly, letting the words wash over me, not because they healed anything, but because they proved I wasn't invisible anymore. My phone buzzed, a call from my new attorney, calm, confident. The judge upheld the freeze. "We're prepping the final paperwork. It'll take a few months, but it's yours, Jolene." I didn't cry. I just nodded, even though no one was watching. No one in my family called, not even to pretend they hadn't known. I didn't expect them to, but still, silence cuts cleaner than slander. Aunt Linda disappeared. My cousin from Ohio unfollowed me on everything. And yet, one small envelope arrived a week later. No return address. Inside, one line on a torn index card. "You were right." I didn't need to know who sent it. I folded it once, slid it behind my mother's photo in my wallet, and left it there. I donated part of the estate to the South Carolina Literacy Project under Mom's name. No big check ceremony, no camera crews, just a quiet grant, like she'd have wanted. I returned to the library part-time, not because I had to, but because I missed the smell of books, the rhythm of alphabetized order. No one said anything when I came back, but no one looked away either. Weeks later, I unlocked the old house for the final time. Dust drifted in afternoon light like forgotten breath. I moved slowly through each room, touching nothing, just remembering. In the study, I laid out 3 papers, the final will, the forged one, and the tattered handwritten letter. I placed them gently in the fire pit out back, stacked like the layers of deception they were. I struck a match. The flames whispered instead of roared. Ash curled upward like absolution. I didn't watch them burn all the way. I turned before it finished. Drove off with windows down, my mother's scarf tied loosely around my throat. 16 years ago, she once told me, "There are truths only silence can keep alive." Maybe this wasn't silence anymore. Maybe this was peace. I didn't celebrate. I didn't forgive. But I did feel free. Now, when I walk along the coast, I no longer count footsteps behind me. I no longer wonder who's whispering what. I walk alone, steady. I speak when I choose. And if I see shadows where they don't belong, I don't shrink. I smile. Because this time, I know they see me. Sometimes the real inheritance isn't what you receive. It's what you refuse to pass on. What I've learned, what I earned, was never just an estate. It was clarity, boundaries, the right to be heard even when it's inconvenient for others. If you're walking through betrayal, remember this. Silence isn't always strength. Speaking up may cost you something, but staying quiet can cost you everything. Have you ever felt erased by the people meant to protect you? Have you had to fight to prove your truth while others watched in silence? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a 1 in the comments if this hit home, or tell me what city you're watching from. And hey, if you didn't like this video, I still want to know why. Let's talk about it. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own strength, don't forget to subscribe. I've got more stories just like this, raw, real, and resilient, coming your way.